You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. Government did a good job placing R. Kelly into a disadvantaged position when they managed to mobilize multiple accusers against him. First by working with Dreamhampton to secure their stories, and later on by promising them 360 degrees immunities from any form of prosecution. This meant that these women had been given permission to lie on R. Kelly as much as they pleased without fear of any sort of repercussions for this illegal move. In addition, these women were promised a huge killing in form of restitutions that R. Kelly would be made to pay at the end of the lawsuit. When they became skeptical, in order to make them rest assured that they would emerge as winners, the case against R. Kelly was split into 4 parts with 2 federal trials to be followed by 2 state trials. The latter would only be pursued if the first 2 were lost, and dropped in case they had interests from the first 2 trials to protect. The main reason the federal case was split was to forward the false and concocted charges such as the RICO and Mann Act violation to the Brooklyn federal judge Ann Donnelly, one with whom they had a prior agreement to fail the R&B King. The government then paraded 45 R. Kelly accusers before the New York-based Kangaroo Court, which already had a verdict in mind before the trial could even begin. In fact, all the moves that were made pre-real were aimed at securing the most desired guilty verdict, the reason Judge Ann Donnelly did not seem to care when clearly prejudicial jurors were allowed on board. Prejudice R. Kelly was the main agenda the government and trial court were meant to implement, and the multiple women were given scripts to narrate in order to achieve their rather selfish objectives against him. It is important to note that however much these women may have been promised all kinds of benefits, some of them were still dissatisfied and did not want anything to do with R. Kelly's downfall, for they knew well what kind of person he is. Some still confess love for him until the trial date. Chicago main accuser Jane, for example, also known as Rashonda Landfair, did send love notes to R. Kelly even a few days before the hearing as a way of making him know it was not her making to be taking the stand to testify against him. As for Lisa Van Allen, she had to be dragged to court by feds to tell her lies of how R. Kelly allegedly paid her off to seal her mouth about bogus tape evidence. And we all watched Jerhonda Pace mention how she was tired and fed up with the government's demands that she returns to the courtroom to tell even more false stories about the R&B King. She had already been traumatized with her first experience in New York, but according to the video trending online, in her own words she said she was no longer interested in being a pawn to be played by government whenever they had their own agenda to push.
It has been so stressful. Like, I absolutely hate that I even decided to be strong and tell my story.
While the other women did resist the government pressure in silence, Jerhonda's willingness to take to the media and publish a video of herself defecting greatly affected District Attorney Kim Foxx's confidence, and her threats are part of the reason she had decided to quit active politics and announce her exit early enough. Jerhonda has since then been regarded a time bomb, only awaiting the right opportunity to explode and spill the truth of what really happened during Sony's mission to destroy R. Kelly. The last thing the government officials want to see is R. Kelly return to freedom. Not because they think he is guilty, but because they do not want the currently buried truth to come out. They know that once R. Kelly is free again, the women will have nothing to lose by telling the truth about what really happened. They have time and again tried to make the world think R. Kelly is a danger to society and therefore shouldn't be released, just like they made sure to deny him bail, suggesting he was a flight risk before trial. Their main concern is not that he will be danger to any of these women, for he has never been in any way harmful in his relationships with them. If R. Kelly was so bad, we would have no such records of the same people they say he abused sending him encouragement messages before trial. As they are all adult women who know exactly what they are doing, they would be keeping as away from him as they possibly can. It is Kim Foxx's worry, therefore, that some of their partners in crime may flip and talk, especially those they preconditioned and threatened with consequences in case they refuse to testify. There is no doubt R. Kelly has been a victim of corruption within government and the Justice Department. He has been a victim of various forms of impunity, and also a victim of overflowing prejudice. While the government wants the world to believe that he is guilty of RICO violations, suggesting he operated an illegal enterprise whose sole purpose was to commit crime, it looks like the government is the actual culprit of this RICO. Fact that we have evidence proving these women were forcefully brought to the stand is good enough to prove that the prosecutors did use their institution to not only tamper with witnesses, but to also force them to testify against their will. Kim Foxx's nightmare would therefore be if one of them decided to speak out. Some of the things these government officials did are despicable and hard to imagine would be done by our own prosecutors, whose role is to help find justice and not to take sides. If Chicago witness Jane, for example, decided to speak on the way government prosecutor Angel Kroll had been sending her suggestive messages describing her body and skin when she was pregnant, the world would be in for a big shock. It becomes complicated for an institution of government to serve when officials are sexting alleged victims they claim to represent. This alone is enough to call for a dismissal of all charges against R. Kelly, citing a major conflict of interests. Worse still, there is even more to Angel Kroll's involvement on this case. She's got her hands on many illegal actions that should have called for an even deeper investigation than that done by the FBI to ascertain BOP misconduct. According to Marissa Jones, a time is always going to come when the real truth of the matter will come out and the world will finally know what exactly happened, and why R. Kelly has been locked up for all this time with no substantial evidence against him. The mistake the government made was to involve as many as 45 witnesses on this fraudulent case. There is no way all 45 will keep their mouths shut for a long time. At least one will talk and the wait will be over. There is no doubt the video Jerhonda Pace made when she complained about government repeatedly dragging them to court to testify exposed the district attorney a great deal. Only a serial killer that is accustomed to crime will succeed in keeping such a heavy baggage of secrets. Normal people will eventually snap and talk. And for Jerhonda Pace and colleagues, it's only a matter of time. According to Ingrid, we were once made to believe that all these 45 women and men that took the stand were volunteer witnesses who were tired of R. Kelly's behavior and wanted him locked up behind bars. However, if that was the case, Jerhonda's trending video of dissent would not exist, and neither would this famous story about Lisa Van Allen being dragged by the feds to court. These two stories are empiric proof that indeed these so-called accusers were not only lured with incentives such as the promise of money from restitutions and more, but also forced to take to the stand and lie on the R&B king. While the government wants us to believe that R. Kelly enticed and coerced victims, it looks like the government is the master of enticement and coercion and not the other way round. According to Solana, I am happy to see that for once someone is blaming the government for whisking these women and men into court to testify against R. Kelly. I feel these women were preconditioned to do as the government pleased, and the evidence available depicts this perfectly well. I actually do advise these women to come forward and speak the truth, for they will have nowhere to hide when reality hits that R. Kelly has never been a criminal. Come February 18th this year, the truth will begin to prevail, and God be my witness, the world is going to be shocked to learn just how far the government was willing to go in serving their Sony employers who clearly want R. Kelly dead like they did Michael Jackson. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.